Hello everybody, welcome back to Project Chariot. Our last installment discussed the setup of the biological power source for the wheels of our vehicles, as well as the mechanism by which these synthetic cyborgs, or synthborgs, will be able to change gears. This episode is going to focus on keeping the muscles alive. So to keep the muscles alive, think about what the main things a living creature needs. You need oxygen, nutrients from your food supply, you need a way of removing waste, you need kind of a vascular system or blood system. We'll cover that stuff eventually, but today we're going to focus on the oxygen. We're going to see how does this creature, how does the Synthborg, this wheeled cyborg, how does it undergo cellular respiration, and where does it get the air from? There's a couple ways we could try and do this. We could try and use fans or different mechanical options. Luckily, nature provides us with a pretty robust design for this problem of oxygen and airflow that we know for sure already works with vertebrates. They are called lungs. Lungs are kind of like a little sac and they're filled with air, and then there's a muscle underneath that makes them open and close. The main lungs for our creature are going to be held inside of these lung boxes. So there will be air exchange and partially movement that's going to be facilitated by this series of 6 spiracles. In arthropods, spiracles are holes that exist on the sides of the body, and they allow for oxygen exchange and airflow. But in our creature, which is derived from a mammalian-based organism, then we're just going to have to add these on through a little bit of genetic modification. Now, they'd be more like holes in the sides of the lungs that open up and go to the outside of the body. These spiracles are going to pump air in and out of the air tanks / lungs, these containers on the sides, on the left and right. The piston modules are also going to double as lungs. So we don't want it to be like a shark, where some shark species, if they stop swimming, they just die. So we're going to make it where the normal lungs, those 2 large boxes, those will be able to oxygenate the whole body whenever the creature is sitting still or moving slowly. But then, as the creature speeds up, it's going to need to exercise more and more because it needs to work harder to go faster. So that's where these piston modules are going to come in. That empty space will act as an extra lung. So in total, there's the 2 main lungs, plus the additional 8 lungs that are piston boxes. We're going to need to connect those all together because they'll be derived from the same 2 lungs of a mammal. These tube structures connecting the main lungs to the piston boxes, they're going to be similar in structure to a baseline mammalian esophagus built for pumping food, except these ones are going to be built for pumping air. Our car's muscles shouldn't be disembodied either, so we're going to have to figure out what creature will we derive this base organism for that will eventually modify to make it a cyborg. The genome here is going to be primarily based off of genetically hooved animals, the main 2 being hippos and dolphins. Hippopotamuses are used because we need that base organism to have those 4 legs. Remember the last video, each piston box has that muscle moving back and forth inside of it. Like on your 2 arms, on your forearms, you have the radius and ulna. Yeah, it's basically those. That's why we need the hippopotamus, because it's got the legs in the front and legs in the back. And the second one's going to be dolphins. The dolphins are going to be used for their interesting brain structure, which partially grants them like a more sophisticated intelligence, but their bodies are somewhat reduced. So again, we will need to mix that hippopotamus DNA in there. And this is going to be actually really compatible because both hippos and dolphins are artiodactyls, just meaning like the group to which hooved animals belong. They're genetically related. CRISPR-Cas9 is a gene editing tool. We'll do a little bit of CRISPRing and splice the genetic code till the result is going to be practically its own unique genome. It's going to be unrecognizable as either a hippopotamus or a dolphin. This base organism will serve as the biological component of the Phaeton I Synthborg model. Imagine an animal shifted. It's got its arms at the front, the legs at the back, and then they're kind of splayed apart and opened up. The 2 bones move forward and backward, and they're encapsulated and enveloped by the lungs. That's going to be kind of what this animal would look like. Now, I'm not going to show the whole thing and depict it because we're mostly going to focus on the internal components and what biologic systems drive what parts of the creature. Get it? Drive. Now, the spiracles are also going to offer room for injury, which is bad because, you know, there's these big gaping holes on the sides. Ever heard of mosquitoes? They're pretty nasty. These open spaces are going to offer potential for infection, potential parasites. Like I said, they could be injured, or at the very least, there's going to be some sort of debris or dust that's going to get housed within those lung chambers. It's going to build up over time. And when you're driving around on the road, you kick up dust, so that's going to make this problem worse. To solve this problem, we're going to use a metal mesh screen placed over this spherical region, and we need to keep them high up off the ground, so above the wheels, because we want to allow for all-terrain movement. If it's driving through a little river or driving through water, we don't want it to suffocate, so its air intake is going to be up here at the top. This does, however, make it a little bit difficult to travel when you're almost completely submerged. So one thing we could do is add an oxygen tank somewhere at the top of the hull, which we'll see towards the end of the series. And we could just kind of have tubes going down to supply oxygen directly to those spiracles. Now, for those saying that that would be an unrealistic idea, keep in mind that just this year in 2026, a group of scientists hailing primarily from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore created a new version of a cyborg cockroach. We've had the tech to make cyborg cockroaches since around 2009, back whenever researchers at University of California, Berkeley in the United States created the first ever remote-controlled cyborg beetle. But this new 2026 roach model is equipped with a small oxygen source and possesses a series of tubes that supply breathable oxygen gas directly to the spiracles, as you can see in the picture, enabling complete submersion. I'm going to place some links in the description to the very first original cyborg bug and this new one, capable of navigating a more aquatic environment. But when coupled with a simple antenna system to receive commands, then this is going to allow the specimen to be remotely operated within fully submerged habitat. So imagine a remote-controlled car that's living and that has an oxygen tank and scuba gear going into the sides of its lungs, driving around down there. It's weighed down because it's got a lot of metal. Now, our wheeled Synthborg, it's going to traverse swamps and other bodies of water while driving along the bottom. So you could do it in rivers, but probably not things with a whole lot of logs. Also, the aforementioned spherical air supply tubes are going to be useful when integrated into our design because they're going to allow for deployment during water-based or space-based missions. Yep, cyborg cars on the moon, that'd be pretty cool. But regardless of the environment, we want our Synthborgs to be capable of acting completely autonomously in addition to being directly controlled. So they'll also need brains. That's going to be the subject of our next video. Thank you for watching. Remember to leave your thoughts in the comments and maybe drop a like or subscribe. But we're all going to discuss the core nervous system in our next installment. But thank you for watching this current episode of Project Chariot.